Okay, hello and welcome to this studio armor review where I cover my Tau Flyers. Or as my gaming friends have kind of nicknamed it, the Tau Flying Circus. I am a strong believer in air support. I actually love the aircraft side of things quite a bit, even more than ground stuff. I used to play a lot of air combat games when I was a kid, and I used to build model airplanes all the time, so this is really natural. And what you see in front of you is the Tau Razer Shark. For some reason, it doesn't seem to get much table time outside of, in the general community. I'm not entirely certain why. I honestly can't seem to do without it. I don't know if I run a list right now that doesn't have air support with at least this one flyer in it. Now, bomber, I can understand that's a little bit more specific to depending on the target. Against great against Tyranids, great against Orcs, great against Imperial Guard maybe, but the bomber really doesn't have much of a place against the more elite and armored armies. But the Razer Shark, however, now that one, especially the way it's loaded out, I always load mine out with the missile pod up front instead of the burst cannon. I figure now the bomber has a missile pod in back, but I put it in front where the burst cannon is, so because you're placed one with the other, so I figured it makes sense. We're ground strafing, so I don't see why it would be mounted on top. The rear quad ion turret is really the killer on this. Now, having both these weapon systems gives it 6 strength 7 AP4 shots. That is a lot of strength 7 shooting. You come in far enough on your, figure you go 36 inches coming off the board edge, you are very likely in the rear arc of some of the advancing armor, and that is going to lay waste to tanks, especially if they've already taken a couple points of damage. So between that and the 2 smart missile systems it comes with, its alpha strike the turn it comes in can be quite devastating against a tank, since you are engaging rear armor. And then with some judicial movement, since both of these are on turrets, you can easily just kind of cruise at 18 inches and just circle the battlefield, picking off targets. Strength 7 is going to wound most things on 2+, monstrous creatures on 3+, typically. And when it's armor 4, or AP4, there are quite a few targets that it's going to eat right through. Unfortunately, there's a lot of the stuff that you'd want to shoot a strength 7 weapon at is going to have AP3 or armor 3s or 2. So the armor piercing value isn't the big selling point. It's the 6 strength 7 shots. So again, hitting on, you're going to hit with an average of 3, wounding on 2. So 2.5 of those are going to go through statistically. So I mean, you're going to be causing wounds off of this. And of course, if you're again shooting at tanks, which is one of its primary targets, it's going to be pretty devastating. Now, one thing I always include on this, there's 2 upgrades I like. One is always on it, and that's the disruption pods. Because again, a 3-up jink has saved its life more often than I can count. And even when I don't jink, a 6-up save is still better than nothing. The other one that occasionally I'll bring in, especially if I am going to face an opponent who I know prefers to use early warning override, or sorry, interceptor. Sorry, that was the Tau War Gear. The interceptor rule, I'll throw decoy launchers on it because there is nothing better than having a 4-up invuln save when you're being intercepted. You don't have to worry about jinking, which obviously that's why they're doing the interceptor. They're either going to try to shoot you down or they're going to at least get a jink so that your first attack is not very powerful. Well, with 4-up invuln, you don't have to worry about jinking. Now, granted, since I have disruption pods, I got to weigh it. Do I want to run the risk of that one better save? I don't know. But it's a 3-point upgrade, not a bad one to add. So if I have the points, I'll throw the 3 points that way. Other than that, though, it's stock. It's a Razer Shark with the missile pod and disruption pods. And I think that comes to 165 or something like that. Yeah, it's an expensive flyer, but I think it does a wonder of damage, considering against aircraft it's really powerful, because that turret in the back, it doesn't have to be lined up to shoot the opponent. It can come on at any arc and shoot at that enemy flyer, and with strength 7 it'll hurt Space Marine flyers as well as everybody else on the board. So again, very good, durable fighter, 3 hull points, and it's able to dish it out. So I don't quite understand why people don't bring it more often, but it's always in my list. Now, one of the things that I fell in love with as soon as I saw it, again, I saw it first, and then I loved the sleek lines and the looks of it. It wasn't until after I had fallen in love with it that I learned what it was capable of, and that is the Barracuda. And I have 2, because 1 just isn't enough. Now, the Barracuda is actually only 2 hull points. Honestly, that's kind of weak. But you know, when you're evaluating a unit, you shouldn't fixate on any one particular stat. You gotta look at the whole thing in combination. So, in this particular case, I have a flyer that has only 2 hull points, but it has the Agile special rule, which means it's +1 on its Jinx save. So where it's normally 3, it's 2. 3. So where it's normally 4, it's a 3-up. Now, being that it's only 2 hull points, I always throw disruption pods on it. So I'll have a 2-up Jink. And when I'm firing 4 burst cannon shots off of each wing, 2 strength 7 AP4 missile pod shots, and 3 strength 7 AP3 ion cannon shots, downrange, even hitting on 6s, something's going to hit. So jinking to me isn't such a big deal. I usually do not buy the smart missiles the seeker missiles that come with it, come modeled on it. But I do prefer, when I have the points, to throw a couple of those on there, because, if I get the chance to marker light a flyer, it'll be nice to have a strength 8 shot going toward it, and I just need to have a reliable way of doing marker lights on flyers, which I have. I'll just get to that in a little bit. So these are Forge World flyers. So some think they're overpowered, but again, with the armor or 2 hull points, they will fall apart. They've often been given the nickname of a paper tiger. My son reminded me of that today, actually. And they're very, very strong on the teeth. They have lots of weaponry. In fact, those burst cannons ignore Jinx saves, so they're fantastic against strength 5, AP5, 18-inch range. Great against enemy flyers because they are turrets. And there goes your Eldar flyers, at least hopefully. And when you add the strength 7 up front, that's 5 shots at strength 7. There's a lot of teeth on that. It's just that when it gets hit, one hull point, and you're already about to fall apart. I even had at one point, I was flying over some Eldar, and I was messing them up pretty well. But my opponent got desperate and decided to take his Wave Serpent, or it was either Wave Serpent or Falcon, one of the two, and fire his 1 Shuriken cannon up at me. Okay, I had 1 hull point left because I already take it. It's like, why do I need a Jink? He's got to hit. He's going to hit on 6s, and then if he hit, it was a Shuriken catapult, even worse. So 2 shots. If he hits, then he has to roll a 6 to damage because he was coming at the side of the rear arc. A strength 4 AP or armor 10. 1 in 36 chance that he's actually going to pull it off. And I had a disruption pod on there, so it is actually 1 in 6 chance I was going to evade even that 136. So sure enough, he rolls a 6 to hit, and he rolls a 6 to wound, and I do not roll the 6 to save. So having 2 hull points isn't a little thing. It's important because once you're down to 1, that flyer is almost gone. It doesn't take much. So anyway, that's the Barracudas. I do have, like I said, 2, and I almost always bring 2. In fact, to be honest, I bring all my flyers except my 1 super heavy. Now, I do have one more set of aircraft. And they're kind of different. These are the Remora drones. Now they're actually called flyers. They're actually a flyer stat line, even though they're called drones. There's armor 10 all around. They're also only 2 hull points. But what's nice about them is that they can go in hover mode. And now the way these Forge World kits are made, these wings can move. And it's nice because you fold them up and that makes it a lot easier to transport. And also, when these go into hover mode, that's how I indicate that they're in hover mode, so I don't forget which one's doing what. The problem is they're 90 points each, so they're not very cheap. You can squadron them, but again, I've mentioned why I don't like squadroning, so I never do. Keep these separate, so oftentimes I have to take 2 combined arms attachments to get enough fast attack slots to fit all my aircraft in. And they come with 2 seeker missiles, 2 long barrel burst cannons, which are 4-shot, strength 5 AP5, at a range of 36 inches. Very good strafers. And then they also have 1 network marker light. So I usually use that marker light on to deliver my seeker missile, but I will often use those marker lights to light up the aircraft, the enemy aircraft. And so if I can put enemy aircraft marker lights down, I am going to be able to shoot with ground units. Or if I really need to, I can use my the smart missiles and other things coming off the Barracudas if I have to. But these are, I love the look of these. Again, I was sold by the look, and that's why I got them. And then when I actually learned how to use them, I said, yeah, there's a really good models, and then the really good units to fight with. So that's the rest of my smaller flyers. Now the last thing that I have is my Tiger Shark. This Tiger Shark AX, I think it's 1-1-0. This flyer is my favorite. The look, it's just, again, the Tau vehicles have captured my imagination, and I go buy the units that look cool to me. And it turns out this is actually a pretty decent flyer. It's not, I wouldn't say it's great. I think it has 6 hull points as a super heavy flyer. It does have 2 burst cannons on either side, either wing. It doesn't have a special rule the the Barracuda does, so you get your jinx save against it. It also has the twin-linked missile pods. But on the best part about it is the twin-linked heavy rail rifle. That's a D-strength single shot, or a apocalyptic blast, kind of a strength 10 AP3, I want to say, flechette round. And it also does have the capability of taking up to 6 seeker missiles, which I try as often as I can to put down. So very effective as far as a loadout, but it is huge. It takes up a lot of table space. It's 600 and some odd points, so it's large on the list. I'm pretty sure it can still jink because it doesn't. It says something about only, I think it's super heavy skimmers can't jink. This is a super heavy flyer. So, I don't usually jink though because there's very little that's actually shooting at it. There are other high priority targets on the ground usually, and other Skyfire options going up after it. And I cannot afford to jink with this, with that strength D shot. I'll put disruption pods on to get a 6-up, and I will definitely just rely on my 6 hull points to keep me alive when things get really rough. And I'll fly off the board if I have to, come in and line up another shot. That way I'm not taking as much return fire. It depends. I've had a blast playing this particular flyer. In my experience, it's not overpowered. Again, having only 6 hull points, it is relatively easy to shoot down. What do you call those things? I think it's the Warden Imperial Knight. It has Skyfire rockets up on top. I mean, that does some nasty stuff to it. I think its front armor is pretty good. I think it's 12, 12, 10. So it's really good in defense. But still, armor 12 against strength 8, I mean, you're still going to wound, actually deal a hull point half the time. So the auto cannons and things like that, they can do some damage. So you're not impervious, and I don't think anyone, at least no one has told me it feels like it's overpowered or anything. Not like some of the Forge World flyers and other models out there. But personally, I love the look of this. It just meshes real well with the other flyers I've got. And so, now that this is a Lord of War in the new 7th edition, I could take it in a normal game. But again, at 600 some odd points, that's a huge investment. Compared to the Wraith Knight, that's half that, almost half that. So, a little more than half that, I should say. So, my typical flying circus ends up being just my 3 regular flyers, or 2 Barracudas, Razer Shark, and the Remora drones. But again, that's a lot of air power coming down. But that's the way I like to fly. That's no pun intended. That is the way I like to play the list. I'm a firm believer in air support. And I was inspired when reading a little bit again about the time period around Operation Bodenplatte, which was during World War II. The Germans were in the process leading up to that, the end December, during the December time frame. You all heard of the Battle of the Bulge, and the problem that the Germans didn't have anymore was the air support on the Allied side was grounded. They just had, the weather was terrible, and they could not get off the ground. So the Germans had freedom of movement, which is never a good thing when you've got a major offensive coming their way. You don't want the enemy to have that freedom of movement. So they were able to do quite a bit of get their plans moved down pretty well. Granted, Bastogne was a little wrinkle in their plan, but aside from that, they actually were meeting their goals fairly well. Unfortunately, the weather did break, and as soon as that happened, the Allied air power went back up in the sky, and every day there were squadrons of P-47s, 51s, and Tempests, Typhoons, and Spitfires, you name it, all coming down and raining missiles down, rockets down on top of the German tanks, cannon shells on top of the German transports and troops, and it was a bad thing. And it was that realization that air support served the Germans well during their blitzkrieg. It served the Allies well during their advances, and we've seen it throughout history. From World War II forward, the ground support element for air power is key to some of the successes. So for that reason, I do a lot with air power. Now I try not to. I work with my opponent ahead of time, make sure that he's got at least some answer to it, because 5 flyers with very little or no auto cannons or Skyfire, that's not all that good for him. So I try really hard to not make it impossible for him. I want him to have a challenge. I also want to kind of play a fluffy army, so I'll go light with some other stuff. And this is actually one of the ways I do the Montka or Killing Blow, is by coming in with these this air support, this flying circus, as my buddies call it. All right, so that's my Tau vehicles suits, and now this with just the flyers. Go ahead and comment below. Let me know if there's anything you want me to take a more detailed look at. Share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video, where I'm going to cover a very special portion of my Tau army. That's what I call my Kroot army. All right, see you then. Bye-bye.